What distinguishes great product leaders in complex technology companies? And how do you become one of those great product leaders? Is it technology knowledge, business acumen, or something else entirely? In this discussion, we'll examine product leadership in tech orgs. Our guest is Adam Feinstein. We met at a product leadership group that Rich Marinoff organized to help product leaders excel. Adam is Vice President of Product at Appfolio. He has navigated the challenging journey from individual contributor to executive leadership, including switching from the hardware industry originally into software. Appfolio is transforming property management through innovative cloud-based solutions. Now, whether you're an aspiring product manager wondering about your career trajectory or a seasoned leader facing complex challenges, Adam's candid insights on success and trials will be helpful. And my apologies, I do have a little cold today, so I'm trying to get through talking without coughing so much. If you are listening and you'd rather watch the video version of our discussion, you can go check out our YouTube channel. Simply search for Product Mastery Now on YouTube. Let's jump in right after this.
How can you unlock your full potential as a product manager? We're sharing the product management insights you need. They are based on the 7 research-backed knowledge areas for product mastery. You'll learn to create products customers love, enhance your influence, and elevate your career. Welcome to Product Mastery Now, hosted by Dr. Chad McAllister, product management professor, practitioner, and your guide.
Adam, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Chad.
It's great seeing you again. Since we last talked, you've had a promotion. Congratulations on that portfolio. That might come up a little bit, but expanded responsibilities for your product management work. But I kind of like to start with just that transition into product. You started out in electrical engineering and semiconductors, and somewhere along the way, you got into software product management. Can you give us kind of what drew you into product management?
Yeah, I started thinking I wanted to get my PhD in semiconductor device physics. I really loved the depth of understanding I had and how the world works. And so that was kind of connected to my innate curiosity. And I came out to Santa Barbara because I had a great PhD program. And I did what I didn't know at the time was my first market validation. And I went and I started talking with people that were getting their PhDs. And they're pretty miserable, to be quite honest. And I was like, oof, their personality profile, mine, I don't think it matches. I don't think that's what I want to do. And so I got lucky, and I was like, I'd grown up in the Midwest, went to school on the East Coast. Found myself in beautiful Santa Barbara. I was like, I think I want to stay here. And so I found a job as a process engineer. And fortunately, it was a 30-person company inside of a much bigger company. And the GM was a Stanford PhD, but pivoted to business, and his door was always open. And I was just approaching him with, what are the problems of the business and how can we think about solving them? And that kind of quickly transitioned into what in semiconductors at the time actually had a pretty strong product management focus before there was software SaaS. But they thought about it more along the lines of the project management capabilities. And then they had product marketing as more of what we might think about as typical product now. And so I was doing a lot of that work. And after a bunch of years there working with Intel and Samsung and TSMC, I was traveling more than I wanted to for my family, a couple 100,000 miles a year for several years. And I wanted to get into software because I was also tired of battling physics. And so got the opportunity to come into Appfolio, and it was really, really a fantastic transition. The ability to engage with customers that were willing to and happy to talk with you. The ability to use data to gather insights and figure out what's working and what's not working. A place where really anything is possible and not really battling physics, and the speed at which we could iterate and learn. Those were all things that really connected with the experience that I had learned kind of building big, expensive, hard equipment.
Yep. I love what one of your first customer research activities was trying to understand if you should be a PhD or not. What is it like to be a PhD? So,
yeah.
One of my favorite interviews on this podcast has been with Ben Britton. He was a food chemist, PhD chemist at Pepsi, and then transitioned to being global director of innovation for Snap-on Tools, right, which is our metal-based tools, right? I'm wondering in your case how, because a lot of people that are in a product and thinking about making a change are hesitant to jump industries and kind of lose that domain knowledge information. What was that like for you, right? It sounded like you were motivated to get out of semiconductors, but what was it like moving into software? And did you feel like did you have a lack of domain knowledge, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I've never felt challenged by learning new things. I think Marty Kagan, one of the product leads, is like, look, if you know the craft, if you can't figure out a new kind of market segment in 3 to 6 months and be able to know your way around, you're probably not very good. And so the thing for me, I think it was less about a transition from hardware to software. My experience within building these complex automated metrology equipment, there was a lot of embedded software that I had to work with in terms of, you could think of that as like APIs to partners. There was a lot of UI software for users in terms of reading the results of our system. There were other elements in terms of setting up automation. And so I had a foundation in software per se, but it was kind of .NET based and it wasn't very agile. What I was able to do is take the complexities of that experience and then overlay it with the ability to really rapidly iterate and get a lot more customer feedback along the way.
Hmm. Yeah, excellent. And listeners probably won't hear this because we do a pretty good job of editing.
My
But
dog just got his ball.
oh, I was curious because to me it sounds like seagulls flying outside. I'm like, you're someplace near a beach.
Yeah.
That's quite all right. Hello, dog. Okay, so the transition was reasonable. You had some of the relevant software experience. And as you said, hey, if you can figure out the frameworks, processes involved for product management, the domain knowledge it comes much more easily, right? So
Yeah.
we can learn about the market.
I will say there was a lot of hesitation. There was some concern from Appfolio at the time of like, "Oh, you haven't done
Yeah.
SaaS, you haven't done software. What are you going to do?" And so I guess the other thing I would say is humility is important. So I had been a director level running a business and I was like, look, I'll do anything to get in. So I came in as a senior product manager. I was running a team. And sometimes you want to take a step back to take many steps forward. That was a transition that I made. And it has certainly was a bet that paid off well in the long run.
It has worked out. So made the leap. Excellent. And you have had a number of product manager sort of roles, right? Individual contributor, senior product manager, group product manager, different VP roles, and now VP of product there at Appfolio. So a lot of transitional experiences along the way. What are some that stand out that you said, wow, this was really beneficial for me to prepare for the next step, or it gave me visibility into what that next level would look like, or somehow it stretched and grew you? What can you share with us?
Yeah. So I think the first step obviously was from IC to group product manager. And at Folio at the time, we were growing very quickly, both from a revenue perspective and from a headcount perspective. And so for me, that was then learning what it meant to be a manager, learning what it meant to be good at hiring. And so I was spending 50% of my time networking, hiring, interviewing. And so that was a skill set I hadn't really developed. And hundreds of interviews later, I really honed that. So that was a big thing. And along the way there, I'd say the other thing is learning to free yourself of the value of your delivery. That's to me the hardest
Hmm.
transition from being an IC product manager to some sort of product leader. You have to be really satisfied to give away your ideas, and hearing your words through other people is the win. And not, and I think there's generally a little bit of a crisis of faith for a lot of people that I see as you step
Hmm.
through that of like, okay, what really is my value? But that first transition was what I learned there. I think then as I went to director, it was more about how do I collaborate and influence across the organization. So really a thing that I learned is a mantra I've got with my team, and I continue to relearn this. Every problem's a people problem. So for sure, as an IC, you're like, okay, what's the user problem I'm focused on? I know we can solve it. Hey, team, what's the solution? But as you scale, you start to realize that for an organization to execute, it really is the people to get the work done. And so you've got to focus on the people. And then as I went through director and came to VP and really thinking about how do you impact the company as a whole, it's really about continuing that every problem's a people problem, and then focusing and taking some bigger shots. How do you understand where you can have the most leverage and really focus your energy there to drive impact?
Okay. So I just want to highlight what you went through there a little bit. That initial, I'm a product manager, I'm bringing something new into the world that didn't exist before, whether it's a feature of a product or a whole entire product, and then moving to this, where's my actual value now that I'm just guiding those decisions and directions. So I almost heard a little bit of grief in your voice. It's just like it felt like you're going back to a point of time and going, man, I kind of missed that.
Yeah,
Yeah, what do you think?
that's 100% true. I think if you really enjoy building things, there is a little bit of, it's kind of like being a parent. You have to be really happy in seeing it come through in a different way. I still love like product reviews and getting on the whiteboard and trying to shape and build something are still some of the most exciting things for me. Getting to talk to customers and users is still some of the most exciting things for me, connecting those insights. I miss working with the team and solving the problems. And maybe it's a bit reminiscent of a simpler time that you can get more kind of tangible feedback and
Mm.
quicker path to value. Like the cycle times of seeing your impact certainly expand as you're growing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I listen to other podcasts, and I have heard that there are some very senior product managers who have decided to stay for after years and years in that role because they just love that so much. Right.
Yeah.
I think with your electrical engineering background, you have the DNA to want to build things. And then oddly enough, you moved into the director and VP roles, as you said, is much more collaborative in nature. And
Mhm.
while those physics constrained problems might be really challenging, they're also well defined. And you throw people into the mix and things get less defined. What have you learned in the way of being able to be a good collaborator and bring people together and get various divergent perspectives on what should be done? You're never going to get everyone on the same page, but you obviously you move forward. Any insights about that, building the collaborative nature of the work?
Yeah. Another mantra that I picked up is slow is smooth, smooth is
Mm,
fast. And so a lot of us who make great progress and we're type A and we want to execute really, really well, it can feel like that slow down and the patience to be collaborative and gain as much contextual alignment as possible. It can feel like you're trudging through mud and it can just feel terrible. And so it really had to be me coming to terms with the fact that the obstacle is away. Like that is the thing that needs to be done. That is the problem that I must solve as a leader. And once I came to terms with that, it allowed me, still challenged, to be more patient and understand this is the thing that needs to happen. And so with that, then focusing on communication, I had another leader that I worked for. He had a saying, your job's not to give it, it's for them to get it. And so spending more time making sure that they understood what I believed. And if they didn't, that's not because they don't get it or they can't get it. It's because I haven't done a good enough job communicating it.
mm.
And so understanding that is important and valuable. Like those were, and even though you're like, I got a ship, I got a deadline, I got something going, it's like, yeah, that's all true. But if you don't focus on the people and that as the problem, you're still not going to get there.
Yeah. Okay. That's really good. The importance of the people and switching from being a people problem to just solving interesting technical or engineering problems. I'm also curious about your business focus in this. It sounded like early on when you started with that hardware company, semiconductors, that you were still really enjoying working with the general manager on larger business issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing, correct me, that really kind of set you up to think about product and the business overall than just specific engineering products that need to get created. How do you think that plays into what has helped you be successful, kind of having this larger organizational business perspective?
I think that from a very young age, I liked the language of business. My grandfather had some stores, kind of entrepreneur, and so I would go in and I would talk with him, and I liked the stock market, and so that was kind of in me. And I think then having the experience and responsibility of what's our P&L, what's our gross margin, what's our cost of materials, like how are we thinking about cost of capital? That was something that I brought into the software domain where, especially as a younger growing company, everything was just like customer, 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 iterate, iterate, iterate. And that's all right. But being able to connect the dots to, okay, but what's the impact going to be? So I think there's really two things is being able to think ahead of what do we think the impact's going to be so that when everything's not so wide open, when everything that you like early days, everything you do has positive ROI. But as you start to not have such blue ocean, you have to be a little bit more thoughtful about the choices you make and the choices that you don't make. I think the other thing it really helped me was it helped me connect to senior leaders and cross-functional partners in an effective way. The language of business is fairly universal, and at the end of the day, it is what we're all trying to accomplish in for-profit companies. And so kind of creating aligned incentives and using that as objective a measure as possible, I think are ways
Hmm.
that it really helped me.
So, and that also suggests kind of a key distinction as you went through these roles, becoming director and then VP, that it is a much more business oriented role. And the conversations are different. And if you can't talk the business of language, you kind of don't feel like you're in the club, right? That
Yeah.
you don't belong here. And so it sounds like that those were important skills that you had already from previous experiences and from growing up from grandfather, it sounds like.
Yeah.
They're really helpful for you. Did you find that you also needed to hone those more as you were into that VP role?
Honestly, I think I got set up so well before I came to Appfolio. I was just always very precocious, and that carried through even into like my early career. And so I tended to find myself in rooms and with activities that were many levels above probably what I should have been doing. So interacting with VPs and directors and annual planning, even when I was two or three levels down. And so I had a lot of comfort there. I think then it was looking at people like Kellogg or some others, deeper understanding of Rule of 40, deeper understanding of like typical SaaS metrics to just round that out. But overall, yeah, it was just kind of learning how other people are thinking about it here and just asking questions.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a key takeaway for listeners wanting to move into those senior leadership roles is understanding the business and how the business works financially or the main levers that makes the organization work and starting to be a part of those conversations. There's some notion that you're supposed to stay in your lane, stay in your swim lane, in your function. Those senior leaders, I think, often appreciate people that are inquisitive about how the business works and learning about that. And you get noticed too when you do those sort of things.
Yeah, connecting it back to where we met with Rich Mironoff talks about these money stories, right? Of
Right.
like, if you can't put it in terms of the money story, do you really know what you're doing? Are they really going to be able
Right.
to understand it?
Yeah, yeah. No one's listening in the C-suite if you don't connect clear dollars to it and talk about
Yeah.
it in those terms. So, okay, you've alluded to some important influencers along the way. Sounds like maybe mentors that shared some wisdom with you. I want to go back to that. Maybe pull out the key times, key people that ran into your life, maybe other things that you said that was helpful for my career, and that might give others listening some ideas about okay, I should be looking for these things.
I got really fortunate along the way where I had managers that had skills that I could really learn and absorb. And I think I may intentionally or unintentionally, I was able to really round myself out with different facets from managers. I think back, my first manager and kind of leader, PhD, shifting into business. And so we had some commonality there. Then early in my career, I was really reporting into people that were from a more traditional marketing background. And so they were pulling me to learn and think more about go to market and more about
Mhm.
sales and more about product positioning. Where when you think about typical product management now, that may not be something that you're as inclined to do. You're just kind of thinking about solving and shipping and traction metrics. And then I ended up at a startup with a VP who I was reporting to who'd done a lot of corporate strategy. And so I got to learn about how he thought about kind of longer term strategy and planning. And so I guess along the way, the common themes are find people that you can really learn from
Yeah.
and that are willing and able to just leverage you and try and grow you. And so they all were very, very helpful in pushing me and helping me grow.
Was anything surprising about that along the way in terms of, well, like why are they interested in helping me grow? Because it sounds like they were, right? And I don't know if you just expected that or if how do you think about that?
I think I was horsepower to help them achieve what they wanted to achieve, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I don't have any altruistic notions about it. I think I was there to help us be successful, and I was willing to do the work that it took to do it. And so I guess the thing I would say, I never ever like to be told what to do. And so, so there's this contrast here. Because what I'm saying is, well, I was helping them do what needed to be done. I think the key was I always had enough confidence to push and really try and understand what they wanted me to do. And I think that managers really appreciate that. Delegation can be really hard. And so if they think they've delegated it effectively to you, but I actually don't know what to do, it's more important. Like, it's not clear what you're asking me to do. It's not clear why it's important. It's not
Mhm.
clear what the priority is. And so that ability to essentially be coachable and not be afraid to make sure that we were on the right track, I think was a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. The people want to invest in people that also care about growing and are helping them move towards their objectives too, right? It's that they see
Yeah.
it not as a waste of time, but as a waste of creating a better capability, in this case in you, to help them achieve their objectives. And you're paying attention, right? And you're
Yeah.
doing those things that convey to them that you're paying attention and that you're wanting to grow, like, learn new things and be able to accomplish more.
And maybe a hot take here would be I never ever asked about what my career growth is or what's my path to promotion. I just assumed, and maybe that's naively, maybe it's wrong, this, that, or the other, was just like, I'm going to get the job done. I'm going to be ready. And if that's ready here, great. If it's not, then I'm ready and valuable somewhere else. So it was never of like, what are the check boxes to get to a promotion? That is just kind of silly to me.
Right, right. I think and not everyone has that perspective for sure, but I think that kind of mirrors a product perspective in the sense that if we understand what the customer wants, we build the product is going to create revenue on its own, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to figure out how to make it do that. We already did that work, right? And likewise, if we're positioning ourselves, treating ourselves as a product and positioning ourselves to do the right work, the income is going to follow that as well.
Yeah.
So, okay. Give us a sense of just what like a day or a week is in your work as a VP of product there at AppFolio for those that
Yeah.
are less familiar with the VP product role.
So I try and take it from a month cycle. I can't help it. I got to start. What am I trying to do in a year? I'm breaking a year down into what am I trying to do in a quarter? In a quarter, what am I trying to do in a month? And so then within a given month, I know kind of what are the top three things? Like, what are the big rocks that I want to accomplish within a month? And so I try and keep those front of mind and move them forward in some way on a weekly basis. And so that's how I think about getting the big stuff that I want to get done. What that typically looks like is a couple hours a week of writing. I'm leveraging AI a lot to help it get me faster and get leverage there. And the writing is for clarity of thought and it's tremendous leverage. So I can write it, I can then send it to my team, cross functional partners around the org, and people can edit and comment and continue to improve the clarity. So that's what I'd like to do more of. Frankly, sometimes you can't do it. So then you've got one on ones and coaching, product reviews, peer one on ones, and just overall honing the team. So I'd say probably about 25% is the people part. Another 25 to 50% is inspection on product craft, and what do we do? Actually, I underestimated. There's a big part of it that is advocacy across the org, continuing to
Mm.
reinform people. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? How can they connect to it? it's so easy in our bubble to just have such conviction in what we're doing and so much clarity. But you go into sales, or you go into marketing, or you go into legal, or you go into business ops, or you go into finance, and they're just like, for no fault, they need to get reminded of what's important and why it's important, so that when something comes down the pike and we're asking them to help, they have a good perspective. So yeah, I'd say that's what a typical week looks like. And then I'm not Pollyannish when people ask about kind of growth. Is like, these are not 40-hour week jobs. That's just not
Mm.
the reality of what you're doing. And I also have a family, and so making sure that I pick and prioritize where that fits in, and then spend some of the time maybe out, maybe where people aren't as active. So for me, sometimes at night is the best time to get that writing done, so that I'm getting that leverage moving forward.
Okay. Back on the writing piece, so you use that to get clarity, to flesh out to maybe some strategy. What AI partner are you liking these days to help you with that?
I vacillate between ChatGPT and Claude. A lot of times I send both. I've heard people talk good things about Gemini, but I have not had good experience with Gemini. I think the caveat there is maybe Gemini Deep Research is good, but I've had pretty good luck with ChatGPT Deep Research. I think I tend to use Claude more for, sorry, I use ChatGPT for certainly shorter things. I use it for improving voice and tone and empathetic communication,
Hmm.
and maybe some, and certainly image creation. I've found Claude and Claude Canvas to be better in terms of a couple page writing and editorial. So still playing around with all of them.
Right. Yeah, I think many of us are. Those are my two as well. I tend to spend most time in. I just enjoy interacting with Claude more. It feels more actually like a brainstorming partner and a little bit less than an AI chatbot. And I like the way in general Claude writes compared to ChatGPT. But ChatGPT to find quick answers to things is often very helpful too.
I've found O3 on deeper reasoning prompts is better, and it still has some other capabilities. Small example: went to a friend's house last night. We're going to watch the NFL draft, and he wanted to have like a, hey, let's all select our picks and we've got a scoring algorithm. It was so much easier for me to say, here's the spreadsheet we're using, here are the rules we're using, take a look at these podcasts, populate that sheet for me. Doing that in O3 ChatGPT was like, it took 30 seconds and I was done. Now, I didn't
Yeah.
win. I came in third out of five, but I didn't have to put much effort in.
That's right, right. You got to simplify the work involved. Okay, very good. What about challenges as product VP? I suspect these are going to be people based, but I might be leaning there too much. A lot of product managers will be aspiring to more responsibility in the organization, and that often means moving into a product leadership sort of role. But it is not without its challenges. What are some challenges that you've had to deal with?
Yeah, I think one mindset challenge that I've really learned is, a coaching point I would give people early in their career is, you have one goal or you have no goals, right? So it's about being really, really focused. And as you get to the VP level, it's really more about the yes and. It's a cross product. You're balancing across multiple things and trying to make multiple things true. And there's no obvious single optima maxima point. So you're taking that challenge, which is generally a new shape of things. You've got to now think about the right answer now and later, then layering that in on, but also everyone else across the org, you can only tell them one thing. So
Mm.
that's also what I believe. So it's like, I need to be thinking about three things, but, and I want to optimize for three things, but I really need to be consistent in my message in the rest of the org, one thing at a time. So that's, I think, one thing that is maybe important to understand, because as a leader, the business has needs and the customers have needs, and you've got to respond to things, and they don't, the eigenvector isn't one, right? It doesn't break down to just one thing. I think the other thing that relates to that is not just pushing back when things seem hard or impossible, but really saying, have I thought creatively about what the yes and solution is? And maybe I break a constraint or two, but I'm still mostly getting what was asked of me. So, hey, we want to solve for a given product launch. Okay. We want it to meet all of these customer needs. Okay. But really, I think the right thing to do is solve it for this segment. And so we're going to delay that segment a little bit. And that's a decision that we need to make. And no, trying to solve, could we get both? Yes. Is it higher risk? Yes. So we're going to focus. So those are some of the challenges that I've had to reorient my brain around as I would become more of a VP level.
Okay, so clarity of communications focused on one thing at a time. Try to keep everyone on the same page in that way, and then stretching the thinking at times. The yes and approach is great, right? Whenever you're given the thing that sounds impossible or just crazy, trying to make that better and what can we actually do. So that's
Yeah.
really good wisdom to share with us as well. So appreciate that. You've probably done some sort of training or coaching along the way. And if yes, what did you find helpful in that? How did that taking time for those things help you?
So I think training in product craft, taking Marty's courses, taking other courses is really good to have a just foundational understanding of the basics. The other thing I like about it is it's a forcing function to focus on the craft, and I think that's really important. Aside from that, I've had the luxury of having coaches,
Mhm.
and those have been afforded to me by Appfolio, and that has been so instrumental in my growth in just the first coach helped me with, hey, Adam, you need to create frameworks. No, everyone doesn't think like you. You expected them to think like you. Maybe you can help them by exposing how you think with frameworks. And a simple thing like that has just had so much leverage and impact for me over the last 6 years.
That's really good. At the product VP level, have those coaches tended to be more business perspective oriented or more product process framework?
Honestly, for the last few years, it's been more human psychology kind
Okay.
of coaching coach. It's every problem's a people problem. I know product and business, what I need help
Yep.
with is interpersonal dynamics.
Fantastic. Right. So you keep everyone moving in the right direction. So, okay. So for the training that I do, which is to help experienced product managers prepare for the next level of their career. I don't advise this being used for new product managers, but someone with 2-3 years under their belt. Oftentimes I find people with 10 to 20 years still wanting to take this training. It's called Rapid Product Mastery Now, the RPM experience. And it's built on these 7 research-backed knowledge areas, right? So, Adam, things like process and portfolio management and strategy and tools that we need for design and development and market research and culture and leadership and the like. And they don't come from me. These have been researched since 1976 and continuing to be so by this nonprofit organization, PDMA, the Product Development and Management Association. Great organization trying to help the craft and the knowledge for product managers that too many of us don't know about. But they've been around a long time. And they keep researching the space for us. And I just make it easier to learn these 7 knowledge areas. And people have found it really helpful in their careers to identify blind spots they weren't aware of and kind of level up their knowledge. So if you want to check it out, it really is for professional product people to level up your career. See if it can help you. Just simply go to productmasterynow.com. You'll see it listed. It is the RPM experience. We love quotes. You shared a quote before that maybe you'll double down on. What is an innovation quote you have for us, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, the slow, smooth, smooth is fast is my favorite one. It just hits so many things, right? To me, it is that double diamond design thinking in a single word, in a single kind of sentence. And every time that I have tried to avoid staring that truth in the face and, okay, well, we're just going to pull them along. We're just going to go.
Right.
Nope, wrong decision. Wrong decision. Go spend the time, get the clarity with the people, the team, whether it's the engineers on a team or an engineering leader or another executive or it doesn't matter sales, it doesn't matter who it is. That's a really strong signal. And so if you're not willing to put that energy in there, you're, you're not doing the job.
Yep, very good. Getting people on board and understanding the vision we're heading is certainly important for what we do together. So fantastic. How can people find out more just about you, more about the work you're doing, anything you want to share with
Yeah.
us?
Typically, LinkedIn for me. I'm mostly a consumer on Twitter. I can't call it X, Twitter for me, but on LinkedIn, that's where I tend to engage and share more of my ideas and my philosophical musings on product and product craft.
Fantastic. We will make sure the link to LinkedIn is part of the show notes. Adam, really appreciate your time. So delightful to hear about just what you've learned through your journey into senior leadership and great insights for people to understand some things to be aware of as they're crafting their journey too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chad. It was a pleasure.
Likewise. And listeners, if you want the written article version of everything we just discussed, simply go to productmasterynow.com/543. As always, keep innovating.
Thank you for listening to Product Mastery Now, where product leaders and managers gain product mastery through practical knowledge, influence, and confidence. By listening, you are becoming a product master, creating products customers love. Find additional resources at productmasterynow.com. Keep innovating.